Welcome to Weaving Quotations into Your Essays. In this video, you'll learn why you have to weave quotations into your essays. You'll learn how to do it. I'll go through some think alouds so that you can see me working through some problems. And hopefully, next time you get a paper back from me, you'll get a grade that you can be very proud of. Where's that paper you're handing me? There it is. There's the grade. And I'll give you a thumbs up. Or I'll be giving a puppet show. Or I'll be falling down because my feet don't work. So, why do we have to use quotes in the first place? Well, you want to weave them seamlessly into your essay because it will make it look good. And you want to weave them smoothly. First, trust me, it shows that you know the text. It gives you credibility as a writer, and that's one thing you want to communicate with your audience. The other thing it does is it shows that you're making your point the way the experts make their point by presenting evidence to demonstrate a point. Finally, using quotations is an incredibly important part of being persuasive, and being persuasive is super important. And if you don't quote, you could get busted for being lazy, or worse, plagiarism. And Arnold says, "Make my day. I don't like people who plagiarize." So, how do you weave quotations in? Well, look at the bard. He's saying just be careful, because really it's just this sort of a technical thing that you need to learn, practice a little bit, and then you should have it for the rest of your academic career, right? Yes. First, look at that giant plate of food. That should be telling you to use only as much quote as you need. If you have way too much quotation, you water down your own argument. Your own voice disappears from the text, so use only as much as you need. Second, hey, use an introductory phrase or clause of your own words. This is quote weaving after all. We don't just drop them in. That is called a dropped quotation, and your teachers will pick up on them so quickly. And put them in your own words. That way you take authority over the evidence you're using. Okay? Finally, see that guy? He's been working very, very hard, writing. And if you take his words without his permission, he's going to be upset. So, cite your sources. All right? In the next slides, we will show you just how to do that. But first, before we show you exactly how to do it, I need to stress that you use quotations to make inferences about what you are writing about. Writing an essay is to demonstrate what you've learned. Using the quotation shows the reader how you know what you know. It's what clued you into that wonderful theory you're sharing. It's what springs you into your commentary, your discussion about what you learned from the text. So a quotation doesn't just repeat information, it's about what you can infer from the text. Here's an example. Okay, so when you choose a quotation, when you choose language from the text that you like, you are looking for words, lines, and ideas that are particularly relevant, revealing, and powerful. Words that do more than restate some assertion, but words that provide, when you analyze them, more insight into your ideas. Here's that example I was telling you about. The topic sentence says, "Romeo proves that he is a fool." That's not a bad assertion to make. It's one that you actually have to demonstrate by pulling out some evidence. But suppose you went and found, "Oh, I am Fortune's fool." Well, it does show him calling himself a fool, but look, it sort of just repeats the what you said in your topic sentence. It doesn't really add a lot. So let's not use that as a quotation. But this second quotation where he says, "Oh, sweet Juliet, thy beauty hath made me effeminate." That means womanly, weak in this case. So yes, he's a sexist. "And in my temper soften valor's steel." This quote does much more than just restate the topic sentence. It implies that Romeo is a fool, and it would give you so much more room to do great analysis. Think about it. You could argue that Romeo is a fool because he's lovesick. Or you could argue that Romeo is a fool because he's too manly. When his boys get insulted, or worse, killed, he turns to violence to defend them. So, all in all, this second quotation is a much better choice. Okay, let's start with some of the basics. Here we have two quotations from Of Mice and Men that are integrated. Notice in the first one, when he first appears, George is described as dark of face, with restless eyes and sharp, strong features. The quoted portion, okay, is right there, and you can see that it is exactly the way that it appeared in the text. It is put inside quotation marks. Notice that I have a citation right there, and I have the period at the end of the sentence, because periods go at the end of the sentences. Now, the citation is a page number. When you're using a single text and your teacher knows what it is, that's all you need to do. Notice, too, that this first quotation, it just flows grammatically from the introduction that appeared in the writer's own voice into the text. See it right there? There is no comma needed, all right? Moving on to number 2. According to Steinbeck, that is an introductory phrase. The ranch was a dreary place to work is how it continues. That introductory phrase must be followed by a comma. It's an introductory element. Okay, it doesn't just flow, and you can sort of hear that with your ears. Second thing to note is that the quotation starts with the beginning of a sentence, and because it starts with a capital letter, you maintain that capital letter. Once again, notice how there is no punctuation inside the quotation mark. It's saved for the outside. Now, that wouldn't be true if there were a quotation mark or an exclamation point. Those guys are special. All right, moving on. Okay, more basics here. You'll probably notice in this first sentence that we've introduced the quote with a full clause. George knows that Slim's questioning of him is meant to be friendly. Okay, that is followed by a colon right there, because this is a full clause. It's not a phrase. Phrase gets a comma, clause gets a colon. And the second thing you'll see is that there are brackets around that verb is. Brackets tell the reader that the writer has changed something inside the quote, maybe a pronoun, maybe a verb tense, and I know now that that is not the way it appeared in Steinbeck's work. The second sentence here shows an ellipse. An ellipse is a dot, 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 and that's what you do if you want to take out some of the quote. And because you don't want to overload your papers with quotations, you want to do that. So every once in a while, you might find that dot, dot, dot is a great way for you to remove part of a quote that you just don't need. Time for a little review. Some things to keep in mind. You should always use your words to lead into a quotation. The quotation should not be its own sentence. Use direct quotations to support inferences, not facts. Quote only what you need. Generally, quotation should not exceed 1 or 2 sentences, and shorter is often more effective. Cite those sources. And finally, when a teacher asks you to use quotations, she doesn't mean that you can only quote words that a character says in a book. You may also quote from descriptions or narration. Now we're going to test our understanding. Here's the sentence. After mocking Romeo's love sickness, Mercutio expresses concern that his friend will not be able to defend himself if he encounters Tybalt. Showing loyalty, Mercutio says, "And is he a man to encounter Tybalt?" Looks okay at first. The format is fine. I've got a comma here. I've also got a quotation mark inside the quotation. I've got the period at the end. So it's not actually the form that I'm looking at. It's how it's used. I can see that the quotation says, "Is he a man to encounter Tybalt?" And weirdly, that is very, very much like what I've used to set it up. So in this case, this is pretty bad because I'm not using the quotation to break any new ground. I'm not drawing inferences about Romeo's love sickness. I'm really just repeating information, so I need to do better. All right, let's try another one. All right, it says, Mercutio likes to mock his friends. Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye. But Mercutio is also loyal. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt? Hey, this is some good stuff. I like those quotations. They reveal a lot about Mercutio, and I could probably make some nice conclusions about his character. But you probably noticed that those quotations are just dropped in. There are no introductory phrases or clauses, so it's really choppy. So what we'll try to do is put in some revisions to see if I can weave the quotation more effectively. It says, Mercutio likes to mock his friends. He reveals this side of his character when he says, Alas, poor Romeo, he's already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye. But he also demonstrates loyalty when he adds, And is he a man to encounter Tybalt? Much better. Here's a long quotation or block quotation. We can figure out the format and do a little problem solving by looking at this example. For quotations that are more than 4 lines of prose or 3 lines of verse, you place quotations in a freestanding block of text and you omit the quotation marks. You start that quotation on a new line. Note that I've introduced the quote with a colon. Also note that you try to keep the formatting when you're using verse. Those line breaks are essential, and keep it all double-spaced. Here it says, Mercutio reveals his loyalty to Romeo when he ponders Tybalt's challenge. Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye, run through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with the blind bow boy's butt shaft. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt? He mocks Romeo, yet he also expresses concern that his lovesick friend may not be prepared to defend himself. That sounds pretty good, but I've used too much quoted material. Sometimes in writing you have to make tough choices. You don't want to use more than 10% of material from another source because that doesn't show enough of your own authority as a writer, and technically it's plagiarism, so sometimes you have to cut quotes down. In this case, I don't want to sacrifice the beautiful language that Shakespeare has, so I'm going to make a few choices. Let's see what happens. You can see that I've cut a few lines out. Alas, poor Romeo, he is already stabbed with a white wench's black eye, run through the ear with a love song. Is he a man to encounter Tybalt? Sure, I'll have to put in a few ellipses, and I'll probably have to change the format of this quote, but it flows now, and I've used less of it. And by making that choice and using only as much quote as I need, my voice as a writer has much more authority. Abadi, that's all, folks. It's the end. Hey, did you know that if you use a word in quotes or a phrase in quotes like this, you could just be using the word to refer to itself, or you're using it ironically or with a special meaning. So maybe I'm saying the end isn't really the end because there's a quiz to take at the end of this lesson. Go look for it, see if it's there, and we'll follow up in class with quotation weaving. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.